Let's set up our delete function here so we can also delete from our list, and we're going to do it similar as with new to do. So just put it in here because everything is already set up here. So I'm just going to add a new constant for this specific delete here. And for this one to work, again, I'm going to add the const of delete, and I'm going to call this deleteTodo like so. And I'm just going to create the structure because then I know I don't make any errors while creating it. So it looks like this. So this will be the structure I'm going to work with. And again, the delete is, we need a specific thing. So we need the ID. So when we do it in Postman, we send in an ID along with it to delete it, right? We don't care what's inside it. We just need the ID specifically to delete something. So this is based off the router we created in our backend. So for this to work, I'm going to go do the sort of easy solution, which is I'm going to create a button up here. But as you can see, this button down here is outside of the loop, which starts here and ends here. So this means this is not really attached to any specific to do because it's just outside the loop. Who doesn't really care? We create one, it gives a new ID and so on and so on. But I'm going to create my button inside of this loop. And the reason for this is that I'm going to grab the ID quickly this way. So I'm just going to create it first and explain it. So I'm going to create a button. Help me please. Why didn't you want to do it with btn? There we go. So I'm going to create a button called deleteTodo, right? And inside this button, I want to have some a click event here. So alt, yes, there we go. That was correct. And this is like the basic Vue standard for click event. I'm going to call this function deleteTodo. And again, since it's a function, I do it like this. And I need to pass through some information here because what I wanted to do is every time it builds or creates, I can do save, it doesn't break, good. So if I go out here and refresh, you can see we have 3 different to-dos right now. We have delete on each one of them. So we have 3 different buttons. So if I hover, I don't actually see anything. But what this means is that when it loops through the first one, this has an ID. So if I go to Mongo, I can refresh. I did a little testing, so that's why the data is a little bit dangerous, a little bit different from the other one. So you can see I have 3 different ones here, right? And everything has a specific ID. This ends with 5, this ends with 3, and E, and so on, right? So every time it creates or every time it loops out some of this product here, that specific ID is already in this loop for this one and in this one for this one. And I can just show you real quick. If I change this author to _ID, oops, that's not an underscore. There we go. So if I do this instead, you can see that this is the actual ID from Mongo, right? So E53. So I know that the ID is already in here and I can use it. So what I want to do with this now is I want to pass it along to do _ID as I just wrote before. So whenever this button is created, the ID is attached to it. So that's kind of what you should think about it. So it's attached to this specific button, no matter how many buttons there are. Good. In our to-do CRUD, if we go back to this one, I need to accept that I'm passing the ID parameter here so that whenever I click a button, I actually get this ID. And again, I know this is in a different file, but think of this way, you're importing this function, this particular function into home. Yes, no, to-dos.view. So it's sort of like actually in it. So I don't have to do anything fancy with passing the ID through components and so on. So I'm just importing it in. And then think of this as already existing in that component because I just invoke it in there. Anyways, so I'm going to steal this one up here because lazy. And instead of doing new, I am going to do delete instead. So our router, based on our router setup we created. So these again is totally based on what we did in our backend. Now this won't be enough. This will just try to delete something, but we really can't because we have to also attach the ID to it, right? So the way we could do this is after this one, so after the last double quotation marks, we do space and then we do the concatenations we can do in JavaScript, and then whatever we want to pass along here. I'm going to pass along the ID that I'm setting in, so the weird number with whatever. And instead of post, I want to do a delete. So it will accept this. So this is basically what you need to delete. I can save now, and if I do a deleteTodo down here, and I save this, and I go back in here, and I accept it, I deconstruct it, deleteTodo, and also down here, do it correctly, like so. So whenever I delete something, this should work in my browser. So I can do this, delete it, and I actually get an error, which is I forgot something. So you can see up here, access to fetch and //to-do /delete, and there's no, if I go to my, do I have a delete over here? Del, there we go. So you can see here, after the delete, I need this tilted, I can't remember, backslash. So I probably forgot to do this in here, as you can see. Yes, so this is the reason I need to add it here. So it actually is the correct path I'm using. So let's try again, and let's go delete this and refresh, because Mongo is not actually doing reactive right now, but now you can see it's deleted. So this is basically what I need, but I am going to add a promise to it because I'm going to use it later on for a little bit. So I'm just setting it up so it's ready to use, and I don't have to pass anything through. I could pass a console login if I want to, so for errors or something, but I'm not going to. But I'm going to have it at least one delete here, or one promise here, for when I need to resolve something that, again, will go back to the reactive part that you just saw that didn't work. So we'll fix that later. All right, next video will be about updating or editing our to-dos.